Hey guys, my name's Doug with infotainment.com. Today we're working on the 2019 and up Chevy Silverado. We have an exciting new upgrade for you guys today. We're going to show you how to install factory LED fog lights. Now, a lot of you who have the Silverado noticed even in the higher trim levels, you don't get fog lights. So here at infotainment.com, we have a fully plug-and-play kit to allow you to add the factory OEM fog lights to your truck. Now at the very end, you do need to program the vehicle's body control module. You can go to your local GM dealer and they can also program it as well. So again, we're gonna show you guys step by step on how to do that in your truck, so let's get started.
All right, so for this install, we're gonna start with the most difficult part first, underneath the hood. So let's pop the hood. So under the hood, the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is remove your negative battery terminal. And this guy is a 10 millimeter. All you gotta do is loosen it up, pull that off, and set it aside so it's far away from making contact to that terminal, so you can safely remove everything else we're about to remove. The next step is underneath this fuse box. So you're going to want to remove the cover, a couple of push tabs on the sides, we'll release that. And what you need to do is access B3 and C3 terminal underneath this fuse panel. So the wiring going into the fuse panel, you need to pin those with a couple of supplied pins in that harness that we got. So to do that, you have these 4 7 millimeter machine screws that hold the wiring harnesses down. You're going to want to loosen those up a little bit. They're not going to come completely out of there. Just loosening them should be fine. And then you're going to want to remove the main power feed coming from your battery, which is a 13 millimeter nut. Pull that off. Set that aside. You can remove that wire. And because the negative battery terminal has been removed, this is fine to kind of set aside there. Now to remove this, you're going to want to grab either a flathead or a panel tool, and there's some tabs around the fuse box here. It's identical to the ones here inside this gap here, and that'll release your fuse panel. Now when you start to lift, if it feels like you got some resistance there, that means these didn't all the way loosen up from those wiring harnesses. So you're gonna get your 7 millimeter again, and while putting some upwards pressure on there, just kind of loosen those up again. And try and free up those harnesses from the bottom of this. What you're doing is unplugging all of your fuses from your fuse panel by loosening those 7 millimeters. So that's how they're secured. When we put it back on, we're going to clip it back down and tighten that machine screw up, and that'll pull the fuse plug in that has all your wire pins going into, and that's going to pull that in and plug it back into all of your fuses. So be gentle with this. You don't want to drop anything and have all these fuses come out, and then you're going to have to grab the manual and see where they go back. So set this aside. Good idea, set it in the upright position. Now we get into the fun stuff. Right here are the 2 terminals that you need to access, B3 and C3. What you need to do is, there's no wires in there. I put a little Sharpie on there so you can see which ones we're talking about. There's nothing in there now. If you have something in there, you're gonna have to either unpin it or cut the end of the wire, but for this demonstration, there's nothing in this harness here because we don't have fog lights installed. So we need to access the back side of that so we can stick our pins in there. So to do that, this is a couple of push type snaps here on the side. You press those in, a little flathead, and this bottom cover should pop off, giving you access to the backside where we can pin this block. It's easy to find the pins up here. When you flip it over, it's a little bit more difficult to see what's going on. So what I got is just a wire here. You can use anything you got that's really small, paper clip, what have you, and you stick it through there, you'll see exactly which pin you need to stick that wire in on the bottom side. And you can do that for both of them, so you can locate that pin very easily, that blank hole for that pin. Now at this point we can grab our wiring and start pinning this fuse box. All right, for the wiring, we're gonna grab our wire, our single wire that has the little heat tape on there in the kit. We're gonna pin that one first. We're gonna need to pin those two spots in here. So we're gonna pin this one, set that wire in the cab, and move on to our fog lights, because that second pin is actually attached to the fog light harness. So once we have the fog lights installed and we start routing the wires up higher into the engine bay, we'll finish off that last pin in here. So we're just gonna do this for now, and we're gonna move on to the fog lights. But if you grab the bottom of this block here, you'll see the wires going into this cavity here. You're gonna wanna get the wire through this part. You don't want to just stick the wire in through here and then snap this back into place and have the wires pinched in between that. So you want to bring it up underneath. Bring that up underneath and through that hole. And then from the bottom side, you'll actually see B and C are according to their row. So you got A, B, C, and 3 would be the number, the pin number over. So this is B3 and this is C3. This individual single wire is going to go into C3. If you look underneath, you'll see that blank spot right there in between those wires. That's where this pin is going to go. You'll have to get it in the right orientation to clip in place in there. And if you need to, grab a little flathead and press that in the rest of the way. So once you work that pin in there all the way, make sure it's nice and tight. And the orientation I was mentioning is make sure that they're all aiming in the same direction, because when you plug this back in, this is where the end of a fuse is going to actually protrude and make contact into that slot. So yeah, once you got that plugged in there, you can take this wire and just run it down and around your battery here. You want to make sure you grab some zip ties and you can zip tie this wire up. But for now, we're just going to kind of run it into the vehicle and have it sitting out of the way so we can get to the rest of the install. And we're going to move up to this grommet in here. Kind of hard to see, but you're going to get the other end of that wire and just run it into that grommet. And we previously did an install on this Silverado, so that little grommet is cut already. But if this is your first time, there's a little protruding part of rubber on that grommet. You can just get a razor blade and slice it ever so gently, so you're left with a little flap there, and you can run that wire into the interior of your vehicle safely. And when you get a little bit of that wire in there, you can go on the inside of your interior and pull the rest of that wire through, remove all that slack on there. All right, so the next step, you're going to want to remove your fog light covers or your non-existent fog light hole covers from the vehicle, so you can get those fog lights installed and finish the rest of that wiring harness install. And what you need to do is remove 3 7mm bolts holding this plastic cover on. What I'm going to try to do here is just break this free on all 3 of them and then get it the rest of the way with my fingers. And if you got a finger ratchet, that'll actually help you out a little bit here. But I'm just going to use the bare socket and pull these out. And you're going to be reusing these 7mm when you're pulling them out, so don't Don't toss them. These are going to be holding on your new fog lights. Alright, and do the same thing on the other side, and we'll be set for the new fog lights. Alright, so now you want to grab your new fog light. We're going to continue the install on the driver's side here and slide that thing in from the rear. You're going to want to have a screw to put in kind of to secure it, because it doesn't just sit there on its own. And once you have your 7mm back in, you can go ahead and tighten those up all the way and move over to the driver's side, the passenger side rather, and do the same thing. Alright, let's hop to the other side and do the same thing. Once your fog lights are installed, you're going to want to grab your harness for those fog lights. The one side that is single harness with a connector on it, the longer side of that harness, that's going to be your driver's side fog light harness. The other end of it that has your pin and your little headlight jumper harness here, this is going to be the passenger side, and this is what's going to go up to that fuse panel that I mentioned earlier. So where we're going to want to start is under the passenger side, and you're going to want to run the driver's side plug over behind the bumper to that driver's side fog light, and then with all this remaining harness staying on the passenger side of the vehicle. So you don't want to start at the driver's side and have to run all of this stuff through to the other side is what I'm trying to get to. But all right, so working back underneath the vehicle, we'll go ahead and run this harness, and I'll show you what I do to get it in there. So to make my life easier a little bit, usually I'll get something to run wires through long distances where I can't really fit my arm. So usually a zip tie should have no problem fitting in all kind of tight places that you can't get your arm into. What I'm gonna do is get that driver's side fog light harness, and I'm gonna tape it to my long zip tie. And this 2 zip ties. Not sure what the length is on that. Maybe a 3-foot zip tie. But I just cut them at the end where the little zip tie clip part is. I cut both off. I tied 2 together, taped it together, so I got one really long one. And I'm gonna get the end of my harness here, and I'm gonna tape it to this zip tie. And doesn't have to be a good tape job, but it just has to be strong enough to stay temporarily while you run this through your body panels of your truck. And what I like to do is leave one end loose like that, just so when I reach the other side, I can just unwrap that real quick. But yeah, now that I have this on the zip tie, I'll go up underneath there and I'll fish this through whatever remaining wire that's kind of got slack in there. I'm just going to use some zip ties to secure. All right, let's move on to the truck. So with your zip tie, you're going to want to run the wire over from the passenger side to the driver's side, just on the front side of your, or the back side rather, of your bumper skin. You can just kind of fish this giant zip tie through to the other side, and you should see it pop out on the other side, from which at that point you can just pull your wire through the rest of the way. All right, let's jump to the passenger side and see if we see it on that side. All right, so keeping that zip tie kind of higher up behind that bumper, you should be able to pull your zip tie and your wire all the way through. And there you go. There's your end of the harness, that tape that you put on there. You can undo that, plug that in. We'll zip tie the rest of the wires up nice and secure, and we'll finish up on the passenger side. Alright, and on the same thing on the driver's side, plug your harness into your fog light. And now we're going to get that long zip tie that we made, and I'm going to drop it down so it's protruding around in this area, or actually maybe through here. We'll see what I can see when I'm up there. And then we'll tape the end of that wire onto the zip tie and pull it up into the engine bay. All right, now with your giant zip tie or string or whatever you have to fish wire, this is where it'll be pretty convenient to have something to help you run this wire. We're gonna drop this down behind your headlight on the passenger side. And it also helps if you have a light source underneath the truck, because you'll see the light just shining up through there. And you can just drop this down until it pops out underneath your truck. And this is going to be almost exactly where we need it to be behind the fog light, so we can reattach that harness onto this zip tie and pull it up into your engine bay. And you may have to poke around a little bit, make sure you have a decent hole that you're going to run those wires through, just so when you're pulling it up, you're not going to get caught on anything. There we go. That one's nice and free. All right, now I'll tape all those wires to that zip tie. All right, so your zip tie hanging down below. You want to go ahead and grab your wire here, and I'm going to grab the skinniest wire out of the bunch. I'm not going to grab the big ends here. And I'm going to tape this wire to the zip tie. Doing the same thing like earlier, just leaving a little tag off of there. Yep, now we can go ahead and pull this up and through to the engine bay. Grab your end of your zip tie here. Just kind of fish the rest of your wires up in here. And there we go. Without a zip tie or the aid of something, that would have been kind of a pain in the butt to do. So highly recommend getting yourself something to fish that wire up. Set that aside. Now this wire is the other pin that we're gonna have to pin into this fuse block here, or this junction block for your fuse panel. And the other two wires are for your headlight. So this is just gonna tee off of your factory headlight plug, which is down there. And essentially it's the same exact plug on your headlight right now, so it has that little red security tab. So you're gonna have to pop that security tab back on your headlight, pull this harness off, and then you can plug this in, and you'll plug the that connector that was plugged into your headlight into the other end. So you're just teeing off of that signal there. Alright, once you clip the new plug into your headlight, make sure to push that little red lock over. And now with your factory plug removed, we'll go ahead and plug in the other end here. And you can zip tie that wire out of the way if you desire. Now with this single end, I'm going to run it through this hole in the brace here, and there's another opening right below this fender support. Let me see if I can kind of run that in there. Yep, and it should spit out on this side. There you go. And you can use that zip tie if you're having problems getting it from there to there, because it's kind of tight in there. But yeah, once you get your wire through, same technique like we did before. Fish this through the bottom of your connector. And you're gonna populate that B3 on your little junction block here. This connector right here. Once you get your little pin into the right hole there, you know, just gonna give it a tug, make sure it doesn't pop back out. And there you have your 2 pins ready to go. We'll pull the slack out of that there so we can connect this all back together and push it down without that wire interfering. There you go. Now we can go ahead and reassemble your fuse box. And line her up. Press her down. You'll kind of hear it clip into place with those clips there. Now the harnesses aren't attached until you tighten these up. All right, that should be good to go there. And you can put this main power feed to your fuse block back in and put that 13 millimeter nut back on there and tighten her down. 13 millimeter deep socket, and don't over tighten, just snug it up real good. Now we can put our fuse cover back on and continue this on the inside of the truck. All right, now coming back inside your cab here, you'll see that wire that we ran earlier and we pulled through the grommet in the firewall. Pretty easy step to run it over to the passenger side. We're gonna have to pin this into a harness underneath your driver's side knee bolster. But to get it over there, if you got the vinyl flooring or carpeted flooring, just pull back your carpet. You're just gonna tuck it up behind all your panels here and just kind of conceal that wire all the way down. Work your way over to the driver's side. Coming over to the driver's side. And you want to come up behind this panel here. And when you're underneath here, you can zip tie this wire up to your other vehicle harnesses that are up in here. And you're gonna wanna bring it all the way over to the end under here where all these harnesses are. And the harness that we're looking for is gonna be this brown one right here. Working from the front of the vehicle, it is the 3rd harness back. And you're just gonna press that little clip end right there and pull straight down. So when you pull that brown harness out, you're gonna have a bunch of rows here. What the pin that you're looking for is pin 10, which is gonna be the 3rd row down and the 3rd one in from the left. So if you got that connector on top and you're aiming it away from you so you see all the wires going in, it's gonna be that 3rd row down, 3rd one in. 1, 2, 3. So we'll get our plug and we'll insert it into the back of the plug here. And again, make sure the orientation is in the right direction. There you go. And make sure that wire doesn't come out. And you can go ahead and plug that harness back into your BCM up there. All right, one of the last steps that you need to do is change out your headlight switch so it has that fog light option on there. So this is a super simple install. Basically what you're gonna wanna do is pop this side panel off with your fuses. Just grabbing this little hole down here, just pull outwards That should pop off, and then you have two 7mm screws securing your little light plate here. It has your switch in it. And when you pull that out and you get around to the back side, the one that you're concerned with is going to be this bottom one here. You can take the whole thing off if it makes it easier for you. Basically, you're going to want to pop up a little red security tab on that harness, and once that switch is not plugged in anymore, the only thing that's holding it in is a couple of clips. So you can get a flathead or your panel removal tool, kind of wedge it in between the plastic there. Those clips is all you're trying to access. So if you wedge something in there, it'll separate the mount from those tabs, and it'll just pop right out. And get your new switch, and it only goes in one way. It'll only fit one way. And just push it in place, and then you can plug this back in. All right, when you're done with that, go ahead and put your panel back on. Snap that back into place. Put your screws back in. All right, and at this point, you can put your panel back on, and we can reconnect the negative terminal on your battery.